reason why the details have been closely guarded for 20 years. The other is that its secret cyber skills have been further refined since then and put to work in Iraq, Afghanistan and even today in Ukraine. And Probin, ABC News, Canberra.
The story of how the Signals Directorate helped catch the Bali bombers features in the documentary Breaking the Code, Cyber Secrets Revealed, which will be on the news channel at 7:30 tonight. Police have arrested a teenager following the death of a man in Melbourne's inner south. Emergency services were called to an address on Surrey Road in South Yarra about 8 o'clock last night and found a 34-year-old man dead. He'd allegedly been stabbed. The 9-year-old Frankston boy is currently assisting Homicide Squad detectives with their inquiries. The AFL Players Association says the AFL cannot excuse itself from ongoing investigations into allegations of historic racism at the Hawthorn Club. The AFL has apologised to players and committed to make clubs more inclusive. As part of the agreement, the AFL says it's excluded from any ongoing complaints, including a case lodged with the Human Rights Commission on Friday. But Players Association boss Paul Marsh has told the Ticket ultimate responsibility for all aspects of the game lies with AFL headquarters.
The AFL has committed to a set of actions that they now need to deliver on, and they need to be held accountable to delivery on that. I don't think the AFL can be exempted from what's going forward here. The reality is they lead this industry, and this is a stain on our industry, and the AFL need to be accountable for working through this with a real focus on where we get to moving forward. So, I think from our perspective, there's no exemption here. This is about how we're going to actually make things better for current and future Indigenous and other players.
The WA Prison Officers Union has accused the Department of Justice of encouraging guards from adult prisons to work in youth detention centres without ensuring they've got a valid Working with Children check. In the past year, more than 100 prison guards have been taking shifts at the troubled Banksia Hill Detention Centre and Casuarina Prison's Juvenile Unit 18.
They work in volatile conditions. Some prison guards at WA's youth custodial centres fear they're exposed to more than assault.
They're also a risk profession. They're told that they're just going to essentially be response staff and assist when things go bad. But there are so few youth justice officers that they're actually having to go in and be youth custody officers.
Most people who work with kids in WA legally require a Working with Children's check, including youth custodial officers. But the union says most adult prison guards taking shifts in juvenile facilities were not asked to obtain the relevant clearances until recently.
Youth custody officers aren't allowed batons or pepper spray. So they put prison officers there so that we can deploy those use of force options to keep control of the youth offenders. And there's no questions on, do you have this qualification?
The Department of Justice did not answer the ABC's question on whether every prison guard who worked in Banksia Hill and Unit 18 at some point over the past year had a valid Working with Children's check at the time. Instead, a spokesperson said those who attend in critical incidents did not require clearance, and those who regularly work in youth custodial settings all currently had one.
This is a legal minefield, potentially.
WA's longest-serving Inspector of Custodial Services says adult prison guards should not be working in juvenile detention centres in the first place.
But it's actually an admission of failure. They don't have the staff. That's the bottom line.
The Prisons Union warns it may direct its members to refuse shifts at the already severely understaffed youth facilities if the department can't provide a formal guarantee that guards won't be held personally liable. Darina Zadvirna, ABC News.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has called on citizens to put aside their differences and focus on the future as he assumes office for a new 5-year term. The 69-year-old has been sworn in at a ceremony in Ankara after winning a runoff election last weekend, extending his 20 years in power. Mr. Erdogan faces a battle to rein in inflation and has called for unity.
As we mark the 100th anniversary of our republic this year, We believe that everyone in Turkey needs to embrace each other. I invite all my citizens and all our 81 provinces from this platform with their districts and villages to start a friendship campaign.
America's teenagers are facing more and more restrictions on their use of social media. The state of Montana has passed a bill to totally ban TikTok over concerns about Chinese influence, while Utah is among several states planning to use the law to limit young people's access to all social media. Lawmakers there say the legislation will address a growing youth mental health crisis. North America correspondent Barbara Miller reports.
Welcome to Utah, a state of stunning beauty, if you have time to look up from your phone.
25, almost 26 hours on TikTok, 10 hours on messages, 6 hours on Instagram, 2 hours on YouTube.
But things are changing for Utah's teens as concerns mount about the impacts of social media.
We're losing kids. We've got a mental health crisis. We have a suicide crisis.
The state's introducing some of the most stringent controls in the U.S.
The more we simply rely on Facebook to parent our kids, I think we're going to continue to have problems.
Users under 18 will have to get verified parental consent to sign up to an app. Parents will be given access to kids' apps and messages, and there'll be an automatic overnight curfew unless parents opt out. 18-year-old Jay worries the restrictions could cut teens off from vital support networks.
I really only found like a queer community because of online and because of specifically Instagram, because it was back then before TikTok.
I think that like education is like more important in this issue than it is necessarily like restriction itself.
The tech industry says the new laws are unconstitutional, would be difficult to enforce, and are not necessary.
What we have seen tech businesses do time and time again is give parents the tools, parents the power to control what is right for their family.
Karen Johnson lobbied for the new legislation. In part, she says, after watching her daughter get addicted to social media.
It just made me feel good to have all these people like saying, "You look so pretty," like "I'm so pretty," and all these things, and I just wanted more.
We can't do this alone. We're fighting big tech. We're fighting billion-dollar corporations.
If the tech industry doesn't stop it, this bill will come into effect next year. And while there's a range of approaches across America with how to deal with the issue of social media and teens, there's a real sense here that one way or the other, more regulation is coming. The experiment on young people in Utah will be closely watched far beyond its borders. Barbara Miller, BBC News, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Now for all the sport news with Danielle Tilly.
The Central Coast Mariners are the A-League men's champions for a second time in history after thrashing Melbourne City 6-1 in the grand final. Socceroos striker Jason Cummins netted a hat-trick as Mariners ran right against this season's premiers in an upset victory in Parramatta. It ends a 10-year championship drought for the Central Coast.
Yeah, it was an amazing night. I thought the boys played unbelievable football, showed so much bravery in a game like that with some young players against arguably the best team in the competition of all time. And then I thought they can't have any complaints about the scoreline. I thought we dominated the game, and from start to finish we were outstanding. And just all credit to the players, the staff and everybody that put a lot of effort into this season and resulted in the scenes you can see there. And from the Central Coast lifting the trophy, and a beautiful night.
Manchester City is on track to win a red treble after the Premier League champion beat crosstown rival Manchester United 2-1 in the English FA Cup final at London's Wembley Stadium. City captain Ilkay Gundogan starred with both goals for his team, the first after 13 seasons, quickest in FA Cup finals history. Pep Guardiola's men meet Italian side Inter Milan next weekend in the European Champions League final in Turkey in a bid to clinch the